You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
Do you need a car? Been shopping only to be turned down because of bad credit, low credit, no credit, bankruptcy, or divorce? Guess what? Today's your lucky day, because now you can buy a car, truck, or SUV, just about any vehicle. It's true. Bad credit doesn't matter. No credit doesn't matter. Bankruptcy or divorce, it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, your job is your ticket to your new vehicle. We're Auto Credit Express, and we've helped thousands of people just like you. Antonio H. told us, great company, got me connected, and the day I went in, I drove off in the car I wanted. 100% worth your time. Need a car? Get started now and drive off as early as today. Just text FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911 right now to get started. That's FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911. Auto financing the easy way. Text FINANCE to 357-911.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
A purple mountain majesties.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Liz Feld. Welcome to For Immediate Release. It is Monday, February 4th, and I am joined again tonight by my colleague, Billy O'Reilly, who is in the nation's capital this evening. Hey, Billy.
How are you, Liz? I'm actually in Virginia, a little bit south, but in the hemisphere, you could feel the angst. So
well, did you go to Virginia because we're going to be talking about that state tonight? This is perfect timing for you to be in Virginia.
It is perfect. And where are you tonight? I know you started the day up in New England, Liz, in Rhode Island.
I started, it's still dark out till 7 a.m. I was driving to Providence from New York, so I left about 5:30 this morning, went up and did a round trip for the day, but I'm back in New York, the state with the highest property taxes in the country, but all is well. And it was 50-something degrees today up here.
Oh, it's crazy. I got to get out this morning and walk the dog and ran into a couple of neighbors out there. And it was just a beautiful day. Yeah, really, really nice.
Especially after last week. Are you down in Virginia for the week?
Just till Wednesday night. Coming back Wednesday night, just have a couple of days of meetings and then back up. But it's funny. I just walked into the hotel room 5 minutes ago, and I think you just got back a few minutes ago too. We're thinking, what can we talk about tonight? And you go and look on the news, and there's 75 things. As always. Oh, I've got to say one thing that I just saw that crossed the wires. A very good piece of news for the entire planet, and you can rarely say that, is it looks like David Malpass is going to be appointed chairman of the World Bank. And David is an old friend and client in New York. Liz, I think you know David too, certainly, and his wife Fidel. And David is just a brilliant guy. He was one of the top economists in the world for many, many years, and has done a lot of great stuff. Was U.S. State Department Undersecretary at the State Department and at Treasury, and is at Treasury now. But it looks like he'll be going to World Bank. And you just couldn't find a better guy, a nicer guy, a smarter guy. He's absolutely brilliant and will take the time to explain really complicated economics to idiots like me. I mean, he'll just he'll just take the time, and he's got patience. And but he's in public service for the right reasons. So it's a great pick from a president that I don't always praise, but this was a really good pick for him.
Well, and David's got very strong views about the role of the World Bank and how expansive it's.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think David has a good conservative view, so that's anybody that shares that essential viewpoint is should like David as a pick. But he's also a gentleman and a good guy, and has a really nice family, like really, really good people.
And he should sail through his confirmation. He's been confirmed by the Senate a couple of times for other positions, including the one he's in right now at Treasury. So I agree with you. Hats off to David. He's got to be thrilled.
Yeah, I think David may have been Reagan also originally, but he's done so many different things, and he's just a gentle soul. Hats off to him. Completely good call. Very good call.
And he ran for the U.S. Senate in New York several years ago.
He ran in New York in the primary. That's where I first met him, and he and then stayed active afterwards. Doing he had a regular column with the Wall Street Journal and did some, I think, CNBC work for a while. My business partner Jessica was his spokesperson on that race, and she just loved him. She traveled around the state with him. And she said it's like you getting a master's or a PhD from one-on-one while flying around on just economic theory and what it means, and he just brought it to life for her. So he he can do big things, and at the same time he'll take the time to come down and translate to regular people. So it's nice.
He's a gentleman as well. It's good to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But so we have Virginia.
So I don't know if you just walked in your hotel, if you've seen anything new or different from what got on.
I went to I'm not near Richmond. I'm actually in Fairfax, but I figure I should look outside for bonfires anyway to see if they're coming with the lit the lit sticks. But it just he's had a heck of a 10 days.
In our last episode, we were actually discussing infanticide and his support of infanticide, because that is exactly what it is.
Right.
And the fact he was trying to get the same bill passed, essentially, that Governor Cuomo got passed here in New York, but Virginia legislature actually the bill didn't pass. He still supports it. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, no Democrats that I saw, unless Billy correct me if I'm wrong, came out. No national Democrats, certainly none of the ones who've already announced for president, came out and opposed his comments about infanticide, his comments supporting the bill that the legislature was considering. And yet 2 days later, many of them came out to dump all over him and demand his resignation for a photo that was published in his yearbook 35 years ago that showed him
medical school yearbook, right?
Exactly, in blackface or with the Ku Klux Klan hood on. Although the presumption was that he was the man in blackface.
Right, and I don't think that and I would bet huge sums that there is a coincidence there. I mean, they had a problem with him. The Democrats had a problem with him with the infanticide bill, and that's exactly what it is. It's a bill that would allow abortion right up till birth for virtually any reason. When you say health, it could be psychological, emotional, it could be anything. And he was getting hammered on that, and then really stepped in it with that interview with several interviews actually, where he backed up that description of it and then said, I have nothing to be ashamed of. And he was out there flailing around, and it was as though somebody maybe had a file on him someplace. Can you imagine that? They had a file of a photo from many, many years ago that just happened to show up as this was going on. And suddenly everyone's talking about, him in either blackface or a Klansman outfit. And of course, now he's saying that it was a moonwalking Michael Jackson thing. But that's what everyone's talking about, and they're trying to take him out. They're trying to take him out. And I got to say, Liz, I think he may still survive, but he could have gotten by on this thing, but he came across as really dishonest or disingenuous at a minimum in trying to explain this thing. He could have said, Jess, I can't believe I did it. I was a total jerk. I don't know what I was thinking. I was drunk. Say something. You know what I mean? Say something, and then you endure it. But he seemed to try and, he backed off initially, acknowledging that he did it, and he just got chewed up. And so I think some people that were standing on the sidelines are now out there with the bonfire people, calling for his head.
And as of 9:00, he still says he's not going to resign.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I kind of understand why, and he says, if I resign, I'm going to be that racist governor for the rest of my life, and I need to stay governor to prove myself, and I think there's something to that. But also, I just want to add, and I'm sorry for talking so much, Liz, but I was in college in 1984, and I was in a fraternity in 1984 where we did the stuff that I would be so ashamed of. I mean, like mad booze parties and stuff like that. Nobody showed up in blackface back then. Like 1984 wasn't 1924. 1984 was yesterday, and you didn't make fun of the Klan. You didn't make the Klan was not funny. Blackface was offensive then too. But that said, he probably could have apologized his way out of this, and just gone through a bad couple of news cycles. But he's made it worse.
Well, there were so many things about it that are odd and also just don't add up. First of all, he had a press conference against his will. Somebody finally dragged him to a press conference 24 hours after the story broke, where he owned up to it and apologized. And then 24 hours later said, actually, it really wasn't me in that photo. I don't know what happened. He thought he was in the photo, but then he wasn't. But nonetheless, the photo appeared on his yearbook page. So whatever the deal is, he endorsed the photo. But then later on said, that it wasn't him. What is bizarre to me, Joe Scarborough, I heard him this morning talking about, he was in college in Alabama in 1984, the deepest of the Southern schools. He said never once did he ever see anything like that when he was in college at that time.
Didn't see that.
Happened, the head of the school would have marched right over to the yearbook offices and shut the place down. It just didn't happen. So I just can't figure out what circumstances were going on, what party this was. And there were other photos in that yearbook at the same time, by the way, in Northam Med School yearbook, that were equally distasteful and offensive. And so, like you said, 1984, not 1944. It wasn't funny. And I have to tell you something else that's really bothering me about all this is people comparing this to the accusations against Justice Kavanaugh. And talk, the whole issue of sort of, the question of, is there a statute of limitations around stupid things that people did, when they were young and naive. And I don't see how there's any comparison at all. First of all, Kavanaugh, nothing was ever proved about Justice Kavanaugh. A lot of accusations.
And that was the whole point, was that they couldn't prove it. Right, exactly.
Couldn't prove it, exactly. The whole thing's entirely different. And so I don't know, obviously, that they're partisan folks, but the sense that there's some kind of equivalency here is ridiculous. But I don't know. He can't be forced to resign, isn't that right? I mean, he can hang on for dear life.
They can impeach him. They said they don't want to do it, but they could do it. But right now, they're suggesting that they don't want to do that. But just going back to the 1984 thing for a second, though, it's like we live in a world of faux outrage. And, we see it with, nobody can do right. The NFL gets in trouble for stuff. Like everybody's in trouble. Everyone's being drummed out of office for saying something 30 years ago or losing their cooking show or whatever. I don't know how egregious those examples were, but, it's an orchestrated thing on the left. What I mean by 1984, I'm not talking about faux outrage. It just wasn't socially acceptable in 1984. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I don't want them to insult 1984 because I was there in 1984, and even Orwell might not want them to insult 1984 because it wasn't okay. I'm not. I don't mean to play on the, oh my God, someone said something racist or someone said something sexist or misogynistic. It just wasn't acceptable. And I think, and maybe there were places where it was, but I'm glad that Joe Scarborough said it wasn't in the South either. But where I was, you would have gotten your butt whooped if you showed up in blackface someplace and you think, aha, this is really funny for a Halloween costume. Nobody would have talked to you. The girls would have chucked you. Like, you know what I mean? It just wasn't acceptable. And but yes, they can impeach him, and they talked about that. But short of that, it sounds like he doesn't want to go. But he'll get the DNC call, and he'll get the funder calls. And I assume that they eventually get him, don't you think?
Yes, I do. Because, obviously,
we'll find a comfortable job for him outside of office. Welcome to your new, practice at this hospital or whatever it might be.
What do you make of the fact that the photo didn't surface until now? I mean, the guy's run for public office a number of times. The story is that some of his med school classmates were disgusted by his support for the infanticide bill, and that's why they leaked it. But it's never come up before. I mean, and he ran a nasty race against Ed Gillespie in 2017, in which he accused Gillespie of being racist. I don't know if you saw that ad that Northam ran, but it was appalling.
Yeah.
Gillespie being chased by a truck with a Confederate flag, not Gillespie, a guy with a Confederate flag on the back of his truck chasing a minority down the street. Did you see that?
Yeah, I remember it, and it was an awful campaign. Yeah. I watched that campaign, and it was terrible. There's no question. He went after him. I didn't hear the story about the medical school classmates. I assumed that the Democrats had it because if the Republicans had it, that would have emerged in that campaign. And so, the Republicans didn't have that. They didn't, you could criticize the Oppo research person, but you can't pick up everything out there. So I assumed that the Democrats had it. When they needed to take them out, they did. If it was medical school classmates, they probably should have done it before. But I like that theory a lot better, that they were outraged at the infanticide bill and took them down. That would be a lot nicer.
Yep.
But then, of course, the lieutenant governor candidate's getting hit also. And so to me that strikes me as more intra-party stuff, where where
blaming the governor for doing it because he's as this lieutenant governor about to be elevated, suddenly this story resurfaced, which apparently had been investigated for a while by the Washington Post during the last election.
Right.
And that's about sexual assault. Lovely.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But when the rats start to operate, it can be entertaining to watch if it wasn't so gross. But gross can be entertaining sometimes. They seem to really be at each other's throats. And see the Democratic Party, you get this, of course, Liz, but the Democratic Party can't have him out there, like they couldn't have Al Franken.
Yeah.
If they're going to make this whole play in 2020 and 19 against the Republican Party as being this racist party, they can't have the governor of Virginia be implicit in it, And so they're going to throw everything at him. I assume they get him. They should be, they should be an under/over on which day. But maybe we'll make it. I say by the time we speak next Monday, I say he's out. What do you think?
Did Obama come forward and call for his resignation? I know Biden did, but Obama, did a huge rally for him. I'm assuming he was campaigning as well during the election. So
that'll be the next call. I don't know because I was out of touch for so long today that I just heard snippets about it on the radio. Okay. But I assume if he didn't, that's the call to come. And and then probably his donor base. But I didn't realize, Liz, you said before the call that Virginia is a one-term governor.
Yes, I remember that from Wilder when Wilder was governor. And I don't know what the basis of that is, but I that's odd to me. I don't know not only what are you going to get done in 4 years, but you do need some consistency for the state.
Right, and the lame duck thing is real. As soon as you're going out of office, you have maybe 30% of the power that you have otherwise. I mean, they need to know that you can go another 4 years in order to have any leverage. So that system is a little strange, but boy, that's certainly gonna blow up. I mean, it's blowing up. I mean, he'll be saved by the State of the Union, and if tomorrow. But I don't think the Republicans are going to let that go. And frankly, whether it was intentional or not, I think the Republicans would prefer to be talking about Governor Northam with the infanticide bill than over this.
Yeah, I would imagine that's the case. Billy, what do you think, big picture, though, about sort of the statute of limitations on things? Now, this being one extreme, but on other behaviors and having to answer for things from high school and college, and I'm thinking about Beto O'Rourke, which and I don't know if you followed closely. His problems with, leaving the scene of an accident several years when he was in his 20s. Did you follow all of that?
Yes, I remember seeing it. I didn't. It came up during the campaign, though, didn't it?
It came up. It did come up during the campaign, and he called it a learning experience. And the incident happened in 1998, I think. And he was honest. So, but he did leave the scene of a terrible accident. Should it matter?
I think it should matter, but it shouldn't be necessarily disqualifying.
Right.
But I think what also should matter is how it's addressed, and that sounds maybe like a little cheap because you can hire people that can coach you how to do it well, but I think it still matters how it's addressed and how much you're willing to show contrition. But I think most importantly, is there a pattern? What other, because people are fallible, and I'm willing.
Are you two still there?
I am.
I think Bill's cutting out again. Still shows he's on the call. I don't know where he's at.
Bill, maybe did you mute yourself by accident?
I'm here.
Hey,
there you
back.
go. Lost you for a sec. Just lost you for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it jumped out. Where do we jump off? I'm so sorry. I apologize, everybody.
It was just more of Virginia. You were talking about, yeah, and the statute of limitations. The infanticide. Now I'm forgetting.
You were saying, and forgive me, everybody, if I repeat something that I've already said, but I think it does matter. I think things that you do in your youth do matter, but I think they're not disqualifying necessarily. I think it matters how you fess up and how much you own it and how you deal with it, and
right.
that's in part not fair because you can hire people that tell you how to do it, but I still think it's important. But mostly, you want to look for a pattern to see if somebody has several things in their life that shows that they're a real jerk or like walking away from the scene of a crime, of an accident. That's bad. If you have other things like that, then that matters. Like if Kavanaugh had a whole string of things that were verifiable, that would have been it. So you want to see that, but I can't stand. Especially, I've got a real problem with when people assign the values of today, or the especially the PC values of the day, the exaggerated values of the day, on behavior that happened in the past, especially 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It's to me, it's so cheap. It's you don't know what it was like to live in those times. It's so easy to criticize people for have done things, and of course, so many things were wrong that happened in the past, but things are wrong today, and I think you should focus on the time that you're alive, and not. I mean, it's just too easy to beat up historical figures for stuff. I mean, there are obvious wrongs in history, but it's things do change over time, And there may be a time where people look back and said, "I can't believe that there were abortions in America in the 20th century, 21st century." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also now there's always this race to be the first one to condemn. I mean, you look at Kirsten Gillibrand going after Al Franken as a perfect example of this.
Right.
And putting everyone together in one big bucket of losers or offenders when there are degrees and circumstances surrounding cases that oftentimes deserve some kind of explanation or forgiveness, and it's just tough. And so much of this is about making an immediate headline, and particularly when you're talking about the political season, and with this Virginia situation was a perfect example. How quickly could everybody pile on to be the first to say this isn't what we stand for. Our party doesn't condone racism. It's never acceptable. This after this governor had been praised for years, actually, for being such a champion for the rights of African Americans, and in Virginia's got an enormous population and he's got quite a record actually. But it didn't matter.
And that's what really matters.
Yes.
Is that so crazy to say that?
No, that's what his defenders were saying.
I mean, I think the guy was an ass for dressing up that way in 1984, which we tried to defend before the year. But I wouldn't have hung out with a guy like that. But if he went on in his life and did great things and show. I mean, look at George Wallace at the end of the day. George Wallace did a complete reversal after he was shot, and he befriended so many African Americans, and they befriended him. And he said, and it changed his life. And I mean, as a Christian, that's supposed to be something that I'm willing to accept. And you forgive people, you give them the chance to redeem themselves. And if the governor has a good record in the African American community, that's got to count a lot. It should. I'm not sure that it will, but it should.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears for a second. Did you see that one of Trump's disloyal, not loyal aides in the White House leaked the president's public schedule, private schedule for the last couple of months. You see that? Axios printed it this morning.
That's such nonsense, don't you think?
No, I do. I don't. I've talked about this. I can't stand these leakers. It makes me crazy. I think the president should be able to run his White House unless he's doing something criminal or something wrong. He shouldn't have this specter of leakers every single day, hamstringing him. And I listen. Listen, we know why he doesn't put anything on his schedule publicly. And that doesn't mean that I know what he's doing during the 60% of his executive time, but it's for this exact reason.
Right.
And the outrage over the fact that he doesn't document every single phone call and every single meeting, it's kind of ironic. Today is proving his point.
And you've worked in the White House, Liz. I mean, these presidents work 24 hours a day, every day of the year. I mean, the amount of pressure that's on them, and and maybe Trump watches more TV, whatever. I don't care. It's not like someone's sitting around eating bonbons in the White House. You know what I mean? There's an enormous amount of stuff that goes on. But this was one of those, and I think this really hurts the news media, and it hurts people who are Trump detractors, serious Trump detractors. This reminds me of the story that came out over the weekend in the New York Times about Donald Trump's skin shade. And it was like it became a big story. And I saw one of the Times reporter, a very good reporter, international reporter, defending the story. And someone said, no one cares about this. And he said, well, 2 million people do now because it's in the New York Times. And it's like, to me, that diminishes the New York Times. It diminishes the whole news industry. It plays into the narrative that the whole world is out to get Trump. Yeah. And I think it diminishes also people that have serious philosophical problems with him, or seriously, they question his values or his morals in office. It just, it puts them all into one basket, and it's too easy to throw it away.
Then I agree with you. And if they can't get him on one thing, they try to get him on something else. So I don't know if it's still the blind hatred for what it is, but the New York Times, who cares what color his skin is? Who cares? I have to tell you, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you have a big leaking problems when you were in the White House? I remember early Reagan days there were leaking problems. I remember watching it as a news consumer. But did you have that like in the Bush years? Was that a big problem?
Not among the Bush staff, but the Reagan staff. There was a lot of backbiting. Remember Don Regan and Richard Darman and that whole crowd. And they were people leaking things about Nancy Reagan when things got ugly. Remember that whole thing? How she was, that every day was dictated by her astrologer. Do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
And the day-to-day stuff. But of course, again, we had the news cycle wasn't what it is now. So stuff, took a lot longer to make it to the front page of the paper. That's for sure.
Is it true that you were the person who had to explain that ketchup is a vegetable?
That wasn't a leak. Sadly, that was a policy. Oh my gosh. It's true that ketchup is in school lunch. Oh yeah, I did. I'll never live that down. Never. In fact,
I figured I'd just throw it back into the.
I gave me some guidance once during my own election not to be talking about that too much. Oh my God. At least we had some laughs.
Exactly.
So did you see, by the way, speaking of the government running effectively, did you see the jobs numbers for January and how the government shutdown? In fact, not only did the shutdown not hurt unemployment, the stock market rallied. 304,000 new jobs in January, all while the government was shut down. So I don't know what lesson we're supposed to draw from that, but perhaps that the federal government doesn't make the world go round.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you had every talking head on TV for a month talking about how many billions were coming out of the economy, with every day. And maybe those billions came out, but I would have liked to have seen the numbers if they were still in there. Right. The jobs number was crazy. That's fantastic news.
And I know you share I feel terrible for the federal employees who literally go weeks without a paycheck, and all that goes without saying. There's no question about it, and the uncertainty, and also just appalling watching the federal government behave the way it does. But the fact that the economy is stronger than it was, it's priceless. I just thought the irony was just terrific.
Yeah, the economy is a wild animal. It's it's life itself. It's it's the it's grass growing through concrete. You know what I mean? It's going to go, and no matter how much governments think that they affect everything, it's they don't. That's a great point, Liz.
Yeah.
That's a great point. It just flew right in the face of the narrative that was being presented.
Yes, that the world had come to a grinding halt. Au contraire.
Right.
Contraire. But I also saw that Nancy Pelosi's favorability number is way up. Did you see this?
I didn't. You're ahead of me.
Released today. Yep, her favorability jumped 8 points since December. I guess they think the reason is that she won the fight with the president over the shutdown. But I mean, she's at 42% favorable and 47% unfavorable. But her, that was a big jump.
I didn't know she had been that low. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, she's still crushing it when it comes to fundraising. I mean, she's always been, and she's I think that's why she keeps getting reelected. The party leader, whether it's as speaker or minority leader, but because she's a killer that way. But I don't know. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow night with the State of the Union? With the two of them in the same room, 5 feet from each other?
I have no idea. I don't even want to guess. But it should be. I'm not even sure I'm going to be around on TV, so I may be just catching it. Catching it. On the mobile phone, or news of it. But I don't know whether he does a shutdown tomorrow. I don't know if there's any leaks out there about it yet. But it's. I think it'll probably be less interesting than it could be at the end of the day, and because you have to do that laundry list speech, and so there'll be the moments and the rest of it, but. To me, watching the State of the Union has almost become like watching the Academy Awards. I can't. It's, one side standing up, stand up, sit down, applause every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It just, it's nauseating. I've watched every State of the Union probably for the last 45 years. And I'll probably end up watching it somehow tomorrow, but I don't really want to. It's I just want what's he going to do? Is he going to shut down again? Is he going to do the state of emergency? I don't. The real question there is: are there 67 votes in the Senate to override if he decides to do that? And I think it could be close. I mean, maybe there's maybe they'll fall a few short, but I think it's potentially you could get enough Republicans breaking where that would happen, where they could push back on that.
I thought a number of Republicans have been telling him that they really won't support this national emergency business. Yeah. So
but they'd have to override the veto,
right?
The budget veto. So we'll see. It's but it's interesting because they'll be pulling. The president would be pulling money from other places. But I assume he goes in there and just hammers the Democrats as being weak on border security and pushes that narrative, and the Supreme Court sits there, tight-lipped, and the military tight-lipped, and are the women all wearing some collar tomorrow night or something like that? That's why I can't watch it.
I know
it's so orchestrated and contrived.
And has anybody said that they're not going to show up at protests? Was it Elijah Cummings? I thought I saw somebody.
Right, but don't let the door hit you in the butt.
Yeah. Well, I guess all cameras will be on Ocasio-Cortez all night long. We're going to see her reaction to everything.
Right.
I mean, is that really honest to God? You have to wonder how much that's driving everybody else crazy in the Democratic caucus.
I find it funny, actually. I kind of look out of her until until she, I'm laughing now and watch her be the next president, but it's, I want to see the footage of 2 years ago, slinging drinks behind the bar. And I was a former bartender. So I appreciated that it takes some skill, but it's just unbelievable how she went from that to everybody leaving the microphones in on every issue. It's incredible.
Every single thing. And still, we've talked about this to death, but she has a lot to learn. We all do. New members of Congress have a ton to learn. It doesn't mean she's not entitled to her own opinions, but I wonder if she asks any questions of anybody, or if she just what she's like really as a colleague.
Right, and she doesn't even have a district office in New York yet, which is crazy. She doesn't have a staff picked. She doesn't have anything. She's just out there on Twitter every day, like somebody else that we all know, and just stirring it up. And stirring it up isn't governing, as we all know. But the news media has gone gaga for her.
Yep.
On both sides. But it's it's the world we live in. It's just nuts. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
But State of the Union should be interesting. I mean, it'll spur a whole bunch of other conversations. But to me, the really interesting thing to watch is if the president declares a state of emergency on the border, how many Republicans break, because that will give people a pretty good sign of what his strength is going into 2020. If the Mueller thing is bad, I think they toss him, and a lot of them will be glad to toss him. They'll have the rationale to do it finally. But when you see the RNC going around trying to rewrite the rules, and now they're trying to get rid of the South Carolina primary, which I assume they'll do successfully. That's been done once before. Now they're trying to get rid of the Kansas primary. Like they're really showing signs of weakness in doing that. And so I think it'll be interesting if he does do the national emergency to watch how bad the damage is in the Senate. Because, that takes, people get permission from the speaker. McConnell's got to sign off on those things, or at least permission to vote their conscience on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be a good bellwether for where he is, going into 2020.
Did you see just moments ago that federal prosecutors issued a subpoena to the inaugural committee for records to, trying to determine if there was any influence by, foreign governments? And
like money wise.
Exactly. So it's federal prosecutors in New York who did it. And, there's this whole issue of never mind what happens with Mueller. The Southern District in New York is going to stay on top of Trump. There are all kinds of things. This is just the latest, but I wonder how much this is going to tie him up and tie them for the next 18 months.
I'm not surprised to hear that story. Is that a New York Times break? Is that what you?
Well, yeah, the Wall Street Journal actually broke it, and the CBS. Everyone else is out with it now, but the Wall Street Journal broke it about 10 minutes ago.
Because it was interesting, because I kind of expected something like that to come down, because the Deutsche Bank story popped up about Deutsche Bank turning down the Trump campaign for loans, and there's the question hanging: where did they get the financing that they needed? And that may be what that second story is about. Is they're trying to find out whether they got foreign loans. I mean, that's been rumored for a long time. It could be nonsense. It could be real. That money was being funneled in from Russia and Ukraine to float the campaign committee, and that would be a real problem. That would be a big deal.
I guess they're looking at Qatar and Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries. So
yeah. Interesting. Yep.
Well, the Saudi Arabia, if that's the case, that raises obviously the question about maybe that's why Trump went easy on the Khashoggi stuff. I mean, and I'm just making that up, but yeah,
right.
These threads you pull a little bit on one of these threads, and yikes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I mean, there's been a lot of series, series of stories about the administration in a whole bunch of areas. But there's also been a string of one-off stories that I don't think make sense as standalones. And that's the question, is like these could be two of them, where it's stuff hinting at what Mueller has or is looking at. And also that Southern District of New York leaks a lot more than Mueller does. So
yeah,
as those stories are coming out, that's been a sieve for a lot of years.
Does Barora still have a lot of friends inside there? He must even. Yeah.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. He's been very good. He's been very. I think his appearances on television are getting better. I know he's been accused of being a media hog, and he loves the limelight and the rest of him. But he's I've watched him in recent days, and he's been very cautious in his words, and I'd be curious to hear what he would say about this. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's on somewhere tonight to talk about it.
Yeah, I haven't watched him on TV lately. I've actually dialed back my cable news consumption in a big way. Have you?
Oh, absolutely. I can't really bear to watch it. I'll go in for I'll go in like, once a month, I'll go in for a deep dive for a few hours one day and just kind of pick it all up. But you know where it is. If anything big happens, it's going to be, it's going to show up everywhere. So, and I guess it probably there'll be a bunch of stories. Apparently, New York is now in a huge budget crunch, and Governor Cuomo is trying to blame it on Trump. So that's no surprise. That'll be out there. I'm just catching up with news myself. But the inaugural committee, that's interesting.
Yes. Oh, can we go back to the abortion stuff for a second? Because I'm really starting to believe that this is going to be a big deal over the next 18 months. And I think the Democrats have made a huge, never mind how disgusted I am by them, but I think they've made a big political mistake in standing by and letting the New York bill and the Virginia bill. And I saw that Gina Raimondo in Rhode Island said she'd sign a bill if it were presented to her, a bill similar to the New York and Virginia bills. But did you see that Ben Sasse was trying to get a bill passed today by in the Senate to essentially to punish any doctors who stood by and didn't do anything about
I did see that.
In these situations? And Patty Murray got in the way. So did a number of other Democrats, but she did as the head of the committee. What do you make of that? And do you think there'll be consequences for that in any of the Senate races going forward? I mean, we know what the public is on this issue.
I hope so much. And we talked about it last week. I worked against the New York bill for a bunch of years here, and the public at large really didn't get involved. The press didn't really want to write that much about it. Even the conservative press didn't, or some of the more conservative press didn't really cover that. I don't mean I mean some of the tabloidy press. I don't mean the National Reviews or the Weekly Standards. They did a lot of coverage, but it was just allowed to happen. I mean, it was just assumed that eventually they were going to get the bill through, and we were using proper words like this is barbarism, this is murder, this is you can't be serious, and yet no, I don't think anyone's going to pay a price in New York. But I hope nationally, Liz. I hope that there's got to be some just rationality out there. And the Sasse bill is just so stark. I mean, of course you should punish a doctor for killing a child that's been born. I mean, come on, have you seen the Gosnell movie about I sent a donation to the organization when they were trying to, I think they group shared it or group funded it. And I sent a donation off a couple of years ago. And I couldn't find it in New York. It was already out of the theaters by the time I knew it was in the theaters, of course. And so I still have to watch it. But that movie should be pushed far and wide because of that whole Gosnell story of the late term abortions. It's there in a full movie format for people to watch. But I hope so. That's the answer. Do you think so, Liz? I mean, do you think there are enough people who can see some black and white and all the gray out there?
I do. I'll tell you this. I don't think the media are going to stay on it. If this were an issue that were affecting, where the Republicans had to answer for it, I think it'd be the opposite. But, I did not see any reporters force Kamala Harris, any of the announced Democratic candidates right now, to take a position on any of this stuff. And I think it should be question number one. Where do you stand on the Virginia bill? Where do you stand on the New York bill? Where do you stand? It is just that important. But I think without the media behind it, obviously the Republicans will do it through paid ads and through their own media. They're on social media and debates and things, but they won't have the press behind them to force the question. That's for sure.
You got put just working against that bill in New York, and you would think that everybody should work against a bill like that. Like politics has nothing to do with it. This is just basic, humanity stuff. But as soon as you came up against those bills, you were put in a box in New York. You were an extremist, anti-women, right to life fanatic. You were like, and there was no understanding that there could be a middle ground or that there's some nuance to this. I mean, there was it was just like as soon as you opposed that bill, you were awful. You were like you just hated women, and I found it really frustrating, I got to say. And there were some reporters that there were probably liberal reporters that I've worked with for years and been able to, that really I could tell it changed our relationship, and it really bugged me. And I think you're right, Liz. I don't see people holding those candidates' feet to the fire. I don't. Maybe if Hewitt is a commentator in one of the, or a questioner in one of the debates, he'd ask it, but I can't imagine who else would.
No, I can't either. I'll tell you, but I can also see, I can't see any of these Democrats turning on each other either on it. I mean, I can see the word parsing and the nobody likes this and, nobody this, nobody that. But in the end, this is really a choice between the physician and I can see all of that nonsense.
Right, exactly.
I can't see anyone other than maybe Joe Biden looking in the camera and saying, I don't, this is terrible. We can't be doing this.
Right. No, I think that's right. And they'll just say, just because I did so many interviews on the New York bill, which is, as far as I know, almost identical to the Virginia bill, and it passed. It's now the New York law, and so you would argue your point passionately, intelligently. You have your bullet points and talking points, and the rest of them. Then really thorough research. So the stuff is that you're putting out there is you can't you just can't attack it. It's there, and the story will come out. It's they say the bill does this, and the Democrats say no, it doesn't. They're a bunch of crazies, and that's it. There's no arbiter in there. It just. They say it does, abortion up until birth, and the other side says no, it doesn't. But look at the bill, read the bill, just read it. It's there.
It's exactly right.
Getting away with that now too. You've seen a few stories out there in op-eds. New York Times has been a couple where they're pushing back and saying, well, that's just not the case. But it is. If you read the bill, that is the case.
Well, and if you just listen to Northam's comments in that radio interview, so people said, well, it was taken out of context. I listened to the whole thing. I don't know if you've had a chance to do that. Nothing out of context at all.
No. You got elected governor, by the way.
Make the baby comfortable while the physician and the mother discuss whether they want to resuscitate the baby.
Right. That's murder one. Right. I mean, and it should be, no matter how you feel about the abortion issue, the baby's been born, and that's what the Gosnell movie is largely about.
Well, I heard today, and I should confirm these before I rattle them off, but my understanding is that NBC and MSNBC and ABC didn't air one story, not one, about the Virginia bill. CNN had a 3-minute clip. And CBS, and I actually heard the Jeff Glor clip, had a piece basically which was about the conservatives criticizing the governor for his comments. So not about how appalling the bill itself was, but that the conservative reaction to the bill. And that was the same with the New York Times. So that's to show you, so we're proving our point about how this would play out if this became in 2020.
Exactly. Here's how it gets reported. It gets reported back as the Republicans or whoever it is, conservatives, were criticizing the Democrats for defending a woman's right to choose, and they were doing it out of fear that the Supreme Court would ban abortion. I mean, it's just so lazy. There's so many things wrong with that, but that's how it's reported. That's, we live with that, but I hope so. And if someone's willing to make that an issue, and I hope somebody is willing to make that an issue, it'd be great if there were a brave Democrat that would do that. Then maybe you would get somewhere, but I'm not too optimistic on it.
No, I'm not either. And I can't even think of who the pro-life Democrats are besides Bob Casey. And
Bob Casey, right.
Bob Casey. I mean, is Joe Manchin?
I don't know. It's a good question.
And Biden actually goes along with the law. I mean, Biden pulls the Cuomo when push comes to shove. He says he's against it morally, but he doesn't govern as he says, he doesn't govern as a Catholic. He just practices. He just
Right, but I mean, people just need more information. I mean, Roe v. Wade is not the prevailing law in the country. It was, it was considered too broad, and it was the Planned Parenthood Casey, and it was, I mean, and then you go. We talked about this last week, and you go around the world and you find out how very few, I think it's 2 or 3 countries are so permissible on abortion, and the countries that you would assume would be, these like socialist paradises, they're far more strict than any state in the country. And it's just, I mean, that's you get into this situation that we're in, Liz, and where you can't debate anything rationally because it's just us and them. It's just the fight back and forth, and it's just, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a, you know what I mean? You hate women, you're a woman hater, or you're a man hater. It's too easy to hurl this stuff back and forth, and you don't get anywhere. But I hope. But you're right. Biden is a legislation guy, and maybe he would answer that in a better way in the debate if it were asked.
Yeah, I can't. We have discussed this, but I just can't reconcile the Democrats' line about border, separation of families at the border and the wall. And they're, calling both of those things immoral, and then this, and they have no comment on this at all. This is a woman's right to choose, but that stuff's immoral, and we should never separate children from their mothers unless it's on the table. I don't know. It just
yeah. And by the way, I just googled Gosnell. It's Gosnell for anybody interested. The movie is actually available online. It is a paid thing, but it's like $3.99 on YouTube, and Google Play has it, and Amazon Prime has it. So for people with Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. But I haven't seen it yet. But I know what's in it because I'm still on the list of I guess for early donors. I'm on their email distribution list, and it's Gosnell movie. If anybody wants to take a look at it, I think it's pretty heavy, but I think it's very well done from what I understand.
Now, in other news, I see that today's Facebook's 15th anniversary officially from February 4th is at Harvard, 2004. It was the first big day for Mark Zuckerberg and his pals. And it looks like Facebook's going as strong as ever. And despite everything that's gone on over the last 18 months and what we've learned about their practices, their advertising is as strong as ever, and they're killing it. They're crushing it, making a fortune.
Yeah, it's amazing because I actually quit Facebook this week after a whole bunch of years. I quit last Wednesday, and I quit LinkedIn too, and I just couldn't take it for whatever reasons. I was thinking about it for a while, but I just got out, and so I did a column on it, and I was looking up some data on Facebook, and it is just amazing. I mean, we all know, the reach of it, but it has a quarter of the world's population as customers. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's more than $500 billion. But in the advertising world, Facebook is it. And in the, political advertising and other advertising, it's such a player. So, I'm not surprised because there's nothing that supplanted it really for targeted advertising. So, and I know they've lost a lot of, or a good number of subscribers, but money's still pouring into that. So isn't that just amazing?
It is amazing. So you quit LinkedIn too. I have a LinkedIn account from about 5 years ago, and I made the mistake once trying to update it. I don't know how to do these things very effectively. I wanted to just try to put in a new board I became a member of because I thought I was asked to do it actually. Everyone said, make sure you get the word out about the board, blah, blah, blah. And of course, they notify the whole universe that you've updated your profile. And
it congratulates you, right?
Oh, you have a new job, which wasn't a new job, it was a board thing. And I haven't gone on it since. And people, I know it's been a really effective tool for a lot of people in their job searches. And in fact, I think it's probably more than ever for that stuff. I know people who rely on that very heavily. In fact, it's sort of their go-to, at least for the first round of any kind of a search. I understand it. I've never reached out to try to link anybody in. I have responded to people who've asked it, but usually it'll sit there for 3 months until I get those reminder notifications. But why did you give up give it up because you were sick of people pestering you?
Yeah, yeah, basically. But I signed up for it. I think it was like I guess I signed up for it like maybe 11 or 12 years ago, whenever it was it was first getting going, and then I instantly got rid of it, and I canceled the thing. Like I'm not going to use this, and it was just there's so many different social media platforms out there, and so I dumped it, but I couldn't get rid of my profile. So for years, I was getting things, so-and-so invited you to be a friend. So-and-so wants to, reached out to you from LinkedIn. And so I felt like I was being rude to people. And so, because they were communicating with me and I wasn't getting back. And so I ended up like re-signing up in order to just see how mad people were at me. And then I couldn't figure out how to get rid of it again. So I don't know that I've gotten rid of it fully this time. I pray that I have. But I have nothing against them. And you're right. I know it's a really important tool in the HR world and networking, but I'm just like, right. You have so-and-so, congratulated you on your work anniversary. And it's like, what work anniversary? And also, I don't even know who so-and-so is. And I find myself writing back saying, oh, hi, so-and-so, great to hear from you. Best to the family, see you soon. I have no idea who it is. I'm just trying to be polite. And then suddenly I'm in conversations with people who I don't know. And so to me, it just shut it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll keep Twitter because and Twitter's is of course the nasty is the nasty one, but at least everyone knows what it is, and it's a good way to move information in articles. So I think I'm gonna keep that. But Facebook, I've gotten a lot of benefit from it, which I talked about in the column. I was able to be a pallbearer at a very, very, very good childhood friend's funeral that I had lost touch with, and I wouldn't have known that he died if it hadn't been for Facebook, or many things like that. We all have those stories of people that we got to see or reconcile with or reconnect with. So I know it's a great product and I have nothing against it. I feel a little bit liberated and to be off of it. And then every time you're on it, people see that you're on it and they start to like instant message you and like, stop, help. You know what I mean?
And then they're hurt that you're not in touch. I think it's so much easier. I'm not on Facebook. Never have to
birthday.
I'm not on Facebook. Period. End of story. You don't have to explain. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good. So you were way ahead of me.
Well, I don't know. Listen, like you, I'll hear from someone in the family that some estranged cousin has reemerged somewhere. And it's always on Facebook or some third grader. I did miss my high school reunion this year. It was a big one. It was 40th. And I keep running into people who say you missed it. And they were on, the only way people knew about it was Facebook in the first place.
So thank God you had an excuse.
Yeah, it was, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Totally legit. Completely legit.
Right, exactly.
Oh my Lord.
I think we're about to run out of time. So I wanted to ask you, what's your prediction on I'm not going to let you off the hook on Governor Northam? Is he in next Monday or out?
Who?
Oh, the Virginia governor.
Oh, I think he's out. What about you?
So okay, yep.
I think he's
out. What about state of emergency?
Nope, I don't think he's going to do it.
I don't do it either, actually.
No, neither of those. I think he'll find a way around it. He'll get something out of this, but no, I don't think he's going to do it.
Would have done it the first time, I think, but we could be proven fools by Monday. So,
well, it won't be the first week. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back next Monday night, February 11th, for another edition of For Immediate Release. So good talking to you, Billy.